Greetings, everyone. My name is Jabria Barber, and today I'm going to be talking about how we can use critical hip hop pedagogy to reframe hegemonic narratives about Black women in hip hop. We'll be talking about the background, the theory, and also session plans that can be used by music therapists. So first, before I start, I have uploaded the session plan to the system, so feel free to pull that up to follow along when we get to that part of the presentation. So working with adolescents in music-based contexts requires a comprehensive exploration of the mainstream themes surrounding gender, race, and sexuality, as well as an understanding of how they manifest in participatory culture. This is especially true in the entertainment industry, specifically in hip hop, where the predominance of male producers, artists, writers, and other industry workers over women is rooted in a historical ideology that assumes that women should play a subordinate role to men. Further, as a genre where race, class, gender, sexuality, and other ideologies are formed, previous scholarship has shown that the hegemonic narratives found in hip hop can have a negative effect on the self-esteem, cognitive development, and identity formation of its consumers, particularly Black adolescents. So with that said, Black adolescents must grapple with the mainstream dichotomies found in the hegemonic narratives in hip hop, like male versus female, Black versus white, good girl versus bad girl, and also light skin versus dark skin. So these dichotomies in hip hop not only influence how Black adolescents view themselves, but they also impact the public's perception of them. So in addition to those dichotomies that I just mentioned, the objectification and the hypersexualization of Black women are also prevalent tropes in hip hop lyrics and imagery. This poses a great challenge for Black adolescents, specifically Black girls, whose sexuality has historical implications of promiscuity and immorality. And it also encourages Black boys to engage in male gaze, which is a phenomenon that's rooted in a heterosexual perspective that presents and represents women as sexual objects for the pleasure of the male viewer. So with all of these problematic narratives found in hip hop, it's important for Black adolescents, specifically Black girls, to have the skills to critically analyze the messages of capitalism, patriarchy, and racism in hip hop. Furthermore, it's important that Black girls have the knowledge to locate the origins of the mainstream themes associated with our identities. So with the intention of resisting these mainstream themes in hip hop, helping professionals, specifically music therapists, must approach their clinical practice through an anti-oppressionist theoretical framework by employing counter-hegemonic practices that will guide their clients to critically question and create alternatives to the messages that they engage with. So in order to frame my argument on how music therapists should use anti-oppressionist perspectives in their practice with Black adolescent girls, I will use the next few slides to provide a brief overview of Black adolescent girls' identity development, followed by a summary of the role of hip hop in its construction. Next, I'll offer a review of the historical racialized and gendered representations of Black women in hip hop. Then I will problematize some of these mainstream views of Black womanhood and its effect on Black girls' attitudes on their sense of self. So the transition from childhood to adulthood is a particularly challenging time for adolescents in the construction of their identities as they negotiate conflicting messages concerning sexuality, interpersonal relationships, and also other cultural influences. Adolescents are given the task of synchronizing both internal and external elements that impact the formation of their identities. In terms of internal factors, like cognitive and emotional processing, this developmental period is a time where emotional regulation skills are only emerging, as evidenced by underdeveloped frontal lobes. With regard to external factors, adolescents often rely on messages from peers, family members, and also the contemporary media to adopt or strive for these admired traits or behaviors deemed acceptable by the group as a whole. So all things considered, this developmental period leaves adolescents vulnerable to what Dahl calls an hijacking of a young person's decision-making, whereby the aforementioned internal and external demands make it very difficult for adolescents to develop agentic behaviors when constructing their identities. Adolescents of color, particularly Black girls, must assume a specific positionality when developing their identities because they must recognize their value and worth, not only in terms of their gender, but also in terms of their race. So dominant narratives pertaining to gender and race have a large impact on Black girls' perceptions about themselves. And this is especially true as Black girls are consumers of the media, where discourses pertaining to sexuality offer damaging and conflicting cultural scenarios that have a central influence on Black girls' racialized and gendered identity construction. And this is especially true when we're talking about the power of the media. So researchers have found that in today's media-saturated landscape with very condensed discourses like texting, blogging, and also tweeting, adolescents can develop their identities at a way faster rate than in-person interactions. In addition, several researchers claim that Black adolescents consume media images from popular culture at an extremely high rate. So hip hop, which is an influential aspect of popular culture, has been characterized as a site of education that Black adolescents use to define themselves. However, despite it being this critical site of identity development, there's been a widespread criticism of sexist and misogynistic sexual scripts in mainstream hip hop music and videos. Also, hip hop sexualized content has raised concerns about its potential negative influence on Black girls' sexual and psychological development. So with regard to Black girls' identity construction, demeaning portrayals of Black women in hip hop, accompanied by the stereotypical racial and gender norms, offer a clear depiction of how Black girls could see themselves and also how they could see other women of color. So in the next few slides, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the derogatory representations of Black women in hip hop, the first being the male-female binary. The mainstream male-female dichotomy that features the domination of men over women is a prominent theme in hip hop music and videos. Generally, hip hop is linked to the Black male identity, whereby men are shown in a more positive light than women. Additionally, Black women are more likely to be portrayed as hypersexual objects who can be used and consumed for the pleasure of others. In contrast to the representations of Black women, Black men are often cast as the focus or the protagonist in hip hop music and videos. Moreover, they're more apt to play dominant characters, informing the sexual identities of Black women. So one of the most prevalent sexual scripts in hip hop that detail this role of Black men in shaping the sexual identities of Black women is the baby mama trope. So the baby mama is known to be a Black woman who has given birth to an illegitimate child. Black men play an essential role in constructing the sexual identity of the baby mama because her role as a woman is determined by how the father of her child values their relationship and nothing more. Additionally, the baby mama is often associated with the popular belief that Black women are subversive manipulators who purposely become pregnant to keep the biological father emotionally and financially indebted to her. So Louisiana rapper Bootsy recounted in his song titled Baby Mama this dominant narrative, that his baby mama got pregnant just to cause problems in his life. And here are the lyrics. Baby mama, you lied to me, you lied. A good man I tried to be, I tried. You do me wrong, even the blind can see. That's why I got another woman on the side of me, and she gonna love me better. Yeah. So in addition to this notion that his baby mama got pregnant just to cause problems in his life, he also sheds light in his lyrics on how a man's sexual prowess for other women can be leveraged to punish his baby mama for her untrustworthy behavior. So it's important to note here that his vilification of his baby mama is a manifestation of a master narrative that characterizes Black women as untrustworthy and immoral. So aside from the gendered ideals in hip hop, racialized notions of light skin versus dark skin is also a prominent theme found in hip hop music and videos. Historically, Black women have been influenced to equate light skin and Eurocentric features with beauty. Coined as colorism by Alice Walker in 1983, the cultural standards of beauty that favor light skin and quote unquote good hair, which is defined as hair with a wavy, silky, and lengthy appearance, can be traced back to the era of slavery, when slave masters sexually abused female slaves, creating mixed race children with Eurocentric phenotypes. Often referred to as the last taboo among African Americans, colorism was designed to further oppress and subjugate Black people through the creation of difference, namely by separating them on the basis of their skin tone. So like many of the other social historical themes in hip hop, this continuum from light to dark as it relates to the beauty standards is also circulated. The perpetuation of colorism in hip hop can be found through coloristic language, which is defined as customary terms attached to skin tone. So a commonly used term for Black women with light skin in hip hop is yellow bone. This term is widely circulated among hip hop lyrics and imagery. One of the most recent is a song entitled Yellow Bone by hip hop artist Danny Lee. And it seems like the video is unavailable, but the lyrics are here are the lyrics to the song. Yellow bone, that's what he wants, that's what he wants. He said he needs to lift, so he had to switch. Yellow bone, that's what he wants. So after the release of her song, Yellow Bone, Danny Lee faced backlash, with fans complaining about how her lyrics reinforced the stereotypical trope that women with light skin are of more value than women with darker skin. Fans also questioned why the singer, who identifies as Dominican, which has its own assumptions about Blackness, felt that light-skinned women should have their own anthem to begin with. So in response to the criticism, Danny Lee responded on Instagram, and you can see the post to the right of the screen. In a post saying, "Why can't I make a song for my light-skinned baddies? Why y'all think I'm hating on other colors when there are millions of songs speaking on all types? Why y'all so sensitive and take it personal? God damn." So in her response, Danny Lee took the position that a men's desire for yellow bones is a matter of preference only. However, she failed to realize how her lyrics perpetuated the socio-historical bias that situates lighter skin as superior to darker complexions. Now, I want to draw your attention to one of the comments under Danny Lee's post. And this is a comment by one of hip hop's biggest artists right now, DaBaby. In his comment, he types 3 yellow circles, which can be interpreted as him agreeing with or co-signing with Danny Lee's message. So his acknowledgement of her assertions points to the prevalence of colorism in today's hip hop's landscape. And it also shows how the emphasis on Eurocentric phenotypes can be perpetuated by both men and women in hip hop. So in addition to vocabulary used to describe light-skinned women, it's also important to highlight the most commonly used terms for women with darker skin. Not to be confused with Black with a capital B, which is used by many people of African descent to describe their racial identity. The term Black with the lowercase b is a predominant name used to describe women with dark skin. Although Black is intended to be a phenotypic descriptor, it also shapes collective ideas, attitudes, and beliefs pertaining to dark skin, especially in Anglo-Saxon linguistics. So we see examples of this in many of the phrases that we use in our society, with phrases like Black is sin, or the negative connotation associated with Black cats. So these internalized messages pertaining to dark skin is also found in hip hop. And a prime example is this song, Snatch It, by Florida rapper Kodak Black. And in the song, he says, "Hey, where them yellow bones? I don't want no black bitch. I'm already Black. I don't need no black bitch. Put your hands up if you a bad bitch." So despite his acknowledgement of his own skin tone and his stage name, Kodak Black, his lyrics mirror the widely held societal view that equate light skin with beauty. In addition to beauty, Kodak's lyric, "I'm already Black, I don't need no black bitch," points to the expectation of superiority, which is the concept that's often attached to light skin tones. So his assertion that he did not desire a woman that shared his dark skin tone, but a yellow bone, alluded to the fact that having a woman with light skin provides a more social commodity and also capital. Furthermore, it highlights how distancing strategies are used by people within the Black community to reinforce the color notions of light versus dark. So in addition to identifying and analyzing the problematic discourses in hip hop and their effects on Black girls' identity construction, it's also important to examine how Black girls reconcile with the imagery and the messaging that they consume in hip hop. So in order to do this, I will outline two important concepts: essentialism and respectability politics. So the first is essentialism. Defined as a monolithic classification given to a particular group that shapes that group's identity, the essentialist concepts of womanhood as it relates to Black women's identity construction reinforces a Black versus white, good girl versus bad girl dichotomy, which echoes mainstream ideologies. Stevens and Phillips argued that the good, innocent, virginal girl continues to be an idealized image of womanhood associated with white females, but unattainable for Black females. This perception is especially evident when surveying the binary portrayals of Black and white women in the media. We see this notion reflected in hip hop through Kanye West's song So Appalled, where he repeats the following lyric: "Champagne wishes, 30 white bitches, 5-star dishes, different exotic fishes." So Kanye's lyrics characterize that white women are a luxurious acquisition, perpetuating the idea that white women are more desirable than Black women. Additionally, it points to the media messages of inferiority that could potentially be internalized by Black girls, lowering their self-esteem. And then we have respectability politics, or the politics of respectability. And those two terms are often used interchangeably. But respectability politics was designed to present women of color as polite, thrifty, and sexually pure. Respectability politics were created to reproduce dominant narratives of class, affiliation, and behavior as a tactic for marginalized groups to gain social status. So one of the most critical tenets of respectability politics is the criticism of sexual expression. So this tenet of respectability politics was recently brought to the forefront after the 2021 Grammy Awards, where female rap artists Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B performed their song WAP. So the backlash that Megan and Cardi received was overwhelming, with the Federal Communications Commission reporting that they received over 1,000 complaints from Grammy viewers who likened Megan and Cardi's performance to pornography. So given that WAP is intended to be an anthem that embraces female sexuality to the fullest, it was not perceived that way by many Grammy watchers. So if you look to the right of the screen, I attached some of the responses seen on Twitter after the performance. The first one reads, finally, someone with a story and a true meaning of their talent. And they were referring to artist Billie Eilish. I'm shocked and appalled with the WAP performance. CBS, not HBO and not Vegas. Children watch. Our daughters watch the Grammys. Disgusting display. On a bed, OMG. The next one says, all I can think of while watching WAP on the Grammys was, thank God Dr. Seuss and Pepe Le Pew were canceled. Certainly can't have any bad influences on children. And the last one, my eyes and ears hurt after watching that disgusting performance of WAP on the Grammys. I can't believe this is the world our children have to grow up in. Absolutely immoral and lost. So this demonization of WAP, of the WAP performance, is a direct reflection of how respectability politics demands the condemnation of any variation of female sexuality that does not match the dominant narrative of sexual purity. It also sends conflicting messages to Black girls who look to Black women in the media, like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, for sentiments of agency and identity formation. So, since hip hop culture is this primary site of identity development that encompasses these hegemonic values that we've been talking about, it can be characterized as an effective space for adolescents to gain what Freire termed as critical consciousness, which suggests that providing the disenfranchised with an active view of the power dynamics that influence societal conditions begins with the development of pedagogical spaces where marginalized youth can discover how their lived experiences have been shaped by larger social institutions. So building on Freire's work, I argue that an anti-impressional theoretical framework like critical hip-hop pedagogy can be used by music therapists to help their Black female clients interrogate the dynamics between ideology, domination, and identity in the consumption of hip-hop music. The components that form the core tenets of critical hip-hop pedagogy draw on Freire pedagogy and critical race theory to challenge issues of racism and other social divisions to prepare disenfranchised youth of color to be agents of social change in their educational and community environments. The perspectives of Freire in particular provide the basis for the notion that all learning is political. Therefore, traditional learning spaces are never neutral institutions. And so he outlines a problem-posing methodology designed to create avenues for youth to participate in what he terms as critical praxis, which encompasses reflection and action. So his methodology includes 5 essential elements: identify the problem, research or analyze the problem, develop a plan, implement the plan, and then evaluate and re-examine the plan. So using this methodology, critical hip hop pedagogy emphasizes that youth are active agents of change, and as such should use new media tools in technology like social media, video footage, podcasts, and web research to gain a critical perspective of the society at large. So the fundamental elements of critical hip hop pedagogy can be extended to cover a variety of social issues that marginalized youth engage with through the media. More specifically, hip hop pedagogy encourages the collaboration between educators, therapists, and communicators and community members to address the role that the media plays both positively and problematically in shaping social thought. That said, I argue that critical hip hop pedagogy can be a powerful tool to deconstruct and rewrite some of those damaging narratives that we've talked about Black women's identity in hip hop. So the multifaceted nature of hip hop in contemporary media requires music therapists to use pedagogical theories and perspectives like critical hip hop pedagogy in their therapeutic processes to help their clients address these media messages that they engage with that present these constructs of race, gender, sexuality, and other components of identity in ways that perpetuate the hegemonic narratives of racism, sexism, and heteronormativity, and also other forms of discrimination. So with this in mind, I offer the sample session plan, which hopefully you can view along with. Surrounding patriarchy in hip hop music, and it can help music therapists imagine the transformative work that they can do with their clients by implementing tenets of critical hip hop pedagogy to empower Black girls to research, deconstruct, and reframe the damaging narratives about Black women in hip hop. So, if you look at the session plan, the first section of the session plan is investigating patriarchy. And this section is intended to frame the session for music therapists and their clients in terms of patriarchy and misogyny and how they manifest in hip hop. And then the next section of the session plan, reframing the narrative, encourages clients to repurpose each problematic narrative through lyric substitution and the creation of new media texts. And as you can see, here are some of the goals that can be addressed in the session plan: to increase self-awareness, to increase critical thinking skills, to increase decision-making skills, to increase autonomy, to increase self-esteem, and also to increase emotional expression. So music therapists who are considering using the session plan should appraise the dynamics of their clients, meaning their grade level, their racial and ethnic backgrounds, their gender, and also their sexual orientation before implementing or modifying the session. So in this session plan, I'm using the song Fine China by artist Chris Brown. And this is for the investigating patriarchy section. And so here are the lyrics. I'm not dangerous when you're mine. I'll be generous. You're irreplaceable, a collectible. You're just like fine china. Favorite. You're my favorite. It's like all the girls around me don't have faces. So in his lyric, he's associating a woman with a piece of fine china, so an object. So from these lyrics, I extracted two patriarchal themes: objectification and also the subordination of women. So I did that by highlighting the lyrics that's associated with those themes. So clients would be encouraged to replace the lyrics that they would highlight with themes opposite of objectification and also the subordination of women through lyric substitution. Then they will be encouraged to reframe the narrative using media tools. So an audio recording software like GarageBand could be used to record the new substituted lyrics. Also, video software can be used to reconstruct the images that might be found in the music video. And so one of the softwares that I found that I really like is BrainPop, which allows users to use animated images to create movies or videos using their Make a Movie feature. So after this stage is completed, to align with the evaluation phase of critical hip hop pedagogy's methodology, the music therapist should provide the client with an evaluation tool of their choice to assess the effectiveness of the intervention. So an evaluation tool that can be used could be a questionnaire or a survey to assess the effectiveness of the intervention. This phase also positions the client to be the expert in the subject matter, and it also encourages them to share their vision of what needs to be addressed in hip hop and how their recommendations or their changes to the lyrics or the images that they found in the hip hop music would address those issues. So examples of what can be used in this evaluation phase, what questions can be asked, would be: how would hip hop be improved if messages of patriarchy were reframed? They could also be asked, how would hip hop consumers benefit from these changes? Now, although this session was designed with Black girls in mind, it's important for music therapists to understand that critical hip hop pedagogy is not limited to Black clients. Music therapists must implement this same framework with clients from other ethnicities who consume the racist and sexist narratives about Black women in hip hop at the same rate as their Black counterparts. So by not addressing these issues with clients from various ethnicities, they could potentially become supporters or silent actors to the disparagement of Black women in the media. Therefore, it's my recommendation that music therapists use the aforementioned counter-hegemonic instruction to prepare their clients, regardless of their ethnicity, to become allies in the quest to reframe problematic media messages in hip hop. So by not addressing issues like colorism and patriarchy and their history in the mainstream media, music therapists run the risk of maintaining the status quo in therapeutic settings by allowing their clients to be silent and passive bystanders in the face of hegemonic narratives. So also, although some interactions with critical hip hop pedagogy may make some music therapists apprehensive, they must overcome their nervousness with engaging with conversations about axes of social division like race and sexuality. Building on this argument, I contend that music therapists must also be culturally aware and practice cultural humility when engaging with hip hop. One cannot teach what they have not learned and learned to value themselves. With that said, music therapists must address their own biases and assumptions as it relates to the portrayal of Black women in hip hop. Also, they should draw on the real world experiences of their clients to inform their thinking on how to incorporate hip hop as a critical pedagogy into therapeutic processes. So although music, videos, podcasts, radio, and other forms of media can make sessions more engaging, however, simply adding media to the session is not sufficient. As the contemporary media landscape is becoming more accustomed to the acceptance of alternative facts, it's important for music therapists to guide their clients to think critically about the information disseminated through mainstream media, to analyze its construction, and also to reframe, which is a very important part, the problematic narratives. So with that said, I end this presentation with the postulation that critical hip hop pedagogy can be an ideal pedagogical framework to support music therapists and their clients in their quest to make sense of the mainstream media messages that perpetuate hegemonic narratives about Black women, and to also create their own alternative media messages that can challenge stereotypes and uphold facts. I thank you all for listening, and I hope to engage with your questions and or comments.